So, at the beginning of this story, we see a gangster boss named Jang. We learn that he had everything in his life. His life was completely perfect. However, he didn't get a good wife at all because his wife, Se-yeon, didn't like him one bit. But Jang didn't care about that at all because he married Se-yeon for one reason. She was the daughter of the chairman of a big company called Hanho. Anyway, after going to the office today, Jang finds out that a carpenter's shop has appeared in the middle of his biggest ongoing project, and that carpenter is absolutely refusing to move his shop. Because of this, he gets extremely angry and calls his most trusted man, Chol. He orders him to take some men and quickly go to that carpenter's shop and force him to move the shop no matter what. Meanwhile, we see the carpenter, who is already very scared because he knew he had messed with a gangster. And right then, we see Manchul arrive with some men. He beats him up pretty badly, and at one point tells him, "If you don't sign this yourself before I count of 3, we'll cut off your hand, and we'll use your finger to put the thumbprint ourselves." Hearing this, the man gets extremely scared. So he signs it himself. Now, that night, as Jang was having a peaceful dinner, another man named Young arrives. We learn that Young always wanted to achieve something bigger than Jang. However, Jang humiliates Young quite a bit. Unable to bear this humiliation, Young quickly leaves. A few months later, Jang is given a large building by the company. To celebrate getting this building, Jang goes to a restaurant to eat ramen. But actually, his purpose for coming here wasn't to eat ramen. His purpose for coming here was to follow someone. But then, we see a high school boy named Dong sitting in front of him, eating ramen. However, when the waitress brings Jang his ramen, Jang asks the waitress, 10 years ago, this shop was run by another woman. Where is she now? The waitress then tells him, perhaps that woman has already passed away by now. Hearing this, Jang starts eating the ramen, which he doesn't like at all. So, he tries to throw them away, pay the bill, and leave. But just then, the chubby boy, Dong, gets a call. So, he tries to leave quickly, leaving his ramen. However, he tells the waitress, I seem to have lost my wallet. I'll come back later and pay you. But the waitress says, it's okay, no problem. You can go. The uncle standing in front of you is very rich. He'll pay your bill too. And after hearing this, when the boy leaves, the waitress takes the boy's bill from Jang. Then the waitress tells him, in return, I'll give you a gift very soon. As Jang pays the bill and starts to leave, a garbage truck blocks his car, so he has to wait there for a while. Because of this, he gets out of the car and starts smoking a cigarette. But then, we also see the boy named Dong, who is trying to retrieve a shoe from the roof. However, as he was trying to get the shoe, he suddenly slips and falls down. And he lands directly on Jang, which causes Jang to pass out right there. Later, when Jang regains consciousness in a hospital, a nurse comes and asks him, Sweetie, are you awake? But after hearing this, he stiffens a bit because he was wondering why the nurse was calling him Sweetie. Then he slowly starts walking forward. But another person on the street asks him, Sweetie, you didn't get hurt anywhere else, did you? But after hearing this, Jang felt that everyone must have gone crazy, because why were they calling a 40-year-old man Sweetie? But right after that, what he sees completely shocks him. He sees his own body lying unconscious in the hospital, currently in a coma. And then, we see the carpenter also rush in, claiming Jang as his son. And that's when Jang realizes that Jang's soul has actually entered the body of that chubby boy, Dong, who had fallen on him from the roof. Anyway, now the doctors thought that perhaps he had suffered a severe head injury from falling from above, which is why his mental condition wasn't very good, and he was talking nonsense. And his father was also saying, my son's way of speaking has changed. My son doesn't even recognize me now. So he asks him, Son, do you recognize me? Then Jang snaps at him. I'm not your son, or anything. Don't even try to touch me. But then the doctors tell them to calm down. And the doctors explain to them that he might have suffered a brain injury from falling from above. That's why he's acting this way. He'll get better on his own in a few days. After this, Jang suddenly remembers that his soul has entered the body of that boy whom he met at the restaurant. And perhaps that waitress exchanged their two souls. Realizing this, he rushes to that restaurant. But when he gets there, he's completely shocked. He sees that the restaurant isn't even there. Then, when he asks a woman, that woman also starts thinking he's crazy because the woman said that restaurant disappeared many years ago. But Jang tells her, "I ate ramen here just yesterday." However, the woman thinks he's crazy and completely ignores him. Meanwhile, when the man named Young learns that Jang's body has gone into a coma, he becomes very happy. After this, when Jang returns home, he sees his wife crying. He thought she was crying because her husband had gone into a coma, but actually, she was crying because her necklace had broken. Then, when his wife sees him, his wife doesn't recognize him at all. So, he tries to explain to her, "I'm your husband, I'm Jang." But his wife not only doesn't believe him, but she also sets off the alarm and stands ready to confront him with a sword. But then the guards rush in, grab Jang, and hand him over to the police. Here, the officer asks Jang, "Why did you enter that house? Were you trying to steal something there?" But after hearing this, Jang gets very angry. And he tells the officer, "That whole house is mine. So, why would I steal from my own house?" However, after hearing this, the carpenter calms his son down a bit. And he explains to the officer that because he hit his head, everything in his brain is messed up. That's why he's been talking nonsense for a long time. So, please forgive him. Saying this much, he takes his son and leaves. The next day, Jang comes to the hospital and repeatedly tries to fall on his real body. He thought that if he did this, his soul might return to his real body. But even after doing this repeatedly, nothing happened. But then, we see Jang's loyal man, Manchul, arrive. After seeing all this, he thought he might have entered a couple's room. But then he remembers that this is his boss's room. So, he comes and tries to grab and beat him. He asks him, "What were you doing here?" And then Manchul realizes that this is the chubby boy who fell on his boss and put him in a coma. So, he was about to beat him. But then the doctors arrive, so he can't do anything. After this, Jang goes to the carpenter's house with him. And here, the carpenter makes a lot of food for his son. But after seeing all this, Jang tells him, "I can't eat all this food." However, when he tastes a little bit, something suddenly happens to him. And when he opens his eyes again, he sees that he had finished all the food. And after this, the carpenter tells Jang, "Look, you go and rest now. Tomorrow morning, we'll go to school, and then we'll discuss this matter." The next day, when the carpenter takes his son to school, they start a meeting with the principal. But we see Jang was still in his attitude. He came and started sitting like a boss, and he didn't budge an inch from his attitude. So, the carpenter explains to the principal that his son would never do something like jumping from the roof to try and commit suicide. Perhaps another boy is behind this. But the principal was directly refusing him. And when Jang sees these things, he realizes that the principal was trying to hide something. And we see that everyone at school already knew that ever since Dong fell from the roof, he hasn't remembered anything since that day. After this, Jang is brought to Dong's classroom. And here, the teacher explains to everyone that he hasn't fully recovered yet due to the head injury. So, all of you should try to help him with every task. However, when Jang goes and sits in the classroom, all the kids here start bullying him. After this, in the cafeteria, we see some girls bullying a girl. This girl's name was Yun. Actually, another girl mixes some fun into Yun's food. Then she tells her to eat it. Yun quietly starts eating the food without protesting. But after this, they throw all the food on Yun. However, when Jang sees this from a distance, he warns them and tells them to let her eat her food. "Why are you bothering her so much?" But after hearing this, a boy from that gang gets extremely angry. So he comes to Jang and says, "I noticed that after that injury, your courage has increased a lot. You're trying to mess with me." Saying this, he was about to slap Jang. But then a teacher comes and calms them down. However, when school ends, that boy catches Jang on the street again. Now this boy tells Jang, "Maybe you forgot everything after falling from the roof. But even if you forget, it's no use. You still have to bring us a burger every day for lunch, or else you'll get beaten up." But after hearing this, Jang slaps him hard across the face. Then, when the boy was about to say something, he slaps him 2 more times. And after taking these 3 slaps, the boy also starts getting scared. And then he asks Jang, "Actually, tell me one thing clearly. Did I, meaning Dong, do anything wrong to you guys? Or why were you trying to bully me? Did you have some old enmity with this body of mine? Or was it just because I was an easy target that you kept bullying me?" Hearing this, the boy gets extremely angry and tells him, "Fatty, you were the easiest target. That's why we bullied you." But after hearing this, Jang slaps him 2 more times, and then he slaps his friends too, and starts to leave. And then, we see a boy named Kim Jae, who was very scared of these bullies and had brought food for them. But since he has now seen them get beaten up, they all grab him, drag him to the bathroom, and start beating him. And they threaten Kim Jae, saying, "If you share the news of us getting beaten up with anyone else, we'll make your life miserable." Then they pull down Kim Jae's pants and try to take a nude video so that they can blackmail him later. However, as they were trying to record the video, Jang comes from behind and, using his stomach strength, knocks them all down. Then Jang takes the phone. And checking this phone, he sees that there were many videos of this boy named Kim Jae where he was repeatedly being bullied. So, he slaps that boy 1 more time and walks out of there. And before leaving, he says, "I'll give your phone back later." After this, when Jang comes home and checks the videos on that phone, he sees what actually happened to that chubby boy named Dong that day. Actually, that day they were trying to bully him on the roof. And they had hung the girl Yun's shoe on the end of a bamboo stick. And the chubby boy, Dong, was told to climb onto the roof and retrieve that shoe. And while trying to get that shoe, he fell on him, meaning on Jang. Now Jang has clearly understood all these matters, what happened to that chubby boy, Dong, whose body he is currently in. Meanwhile, the bully group's boss comes and starts beating them because they didn't delete that video from the phone. But just then, Jang arrives with that phone. And he threatens him, saying, "I've already made a copy of this video. So, if you try to mess with me, I'll make this video public. So, try to stay away from me." Saying this, he gives him the phone and leaves. Meanwhile, we see that since Jang was in a coma, Jang's wife was taking full advantage of it. She had started staying in a hotel with her lover. But just then, Young appears in front of them. And he comes and says, "I've taken all your pictures. I now have proof of everything that you were together. And very soon, I'll send these to Director Han." But then Jang's wife, Se-yeon, tells him, "Just tell me directly what you want. There's no need for all these excuses." Meanwhile, Jang once again comes to his real body, where his most trusted man, Man-chul, was sitting. So, when Man-chul sees this chubby boy, he starts threatening him. He tells him, "Didn't I tell you once not to come near my boss's body? So, what are you doing here?" Saying this, as he was about to beat him, Jang first hits him in his sensitive spot. And then he tells him, "I am your boss." After this, Jang shares some things with him that only Jang would know. And after hearing these, Man-chul also clearly understands that this chubby boy is actually his boss. After this, when Jang was eating, he asks Man-chul, "Why do you sit by my body all day? What's the secret behind it?" Then Man-chul tells him, "I heard from somewhere that the man named Young wants to kill you. That's why I was sitting nearby, protecting your body." The next day, when Jang was at school, a girl suddenly bumps into him and quickly starts to leave. Actually, she was rushing somewhere, but because of the bump, her teddy bear falls down. So, Jang picks it up and starts following her. And, at one point, he catches up to her and gives it to her. But then we learn that this girl is Yun, and she asks Jang, "Have you forgotten everything, because you don't even recognize me?" But after hearing this, Jang was about to say something. Before he could, the girl's mother arrives. However, after seeing Yun's mother, Jang is completely shocked. He sees that this is a woman named Mi-sun, who is Jang's first love. And when Mi-sun sees him, she thinks he's Dong. So she says, "Dong, you've grown so big." But then Jang tells her, "Mi-sun, how are you? It's been a long time since I saw you." But after hearing this, Mi-sun starts hitting him. She says, After falling from the roof, your behavior has become erratic. You're calling an older person like me informal. You need to be beaten. Saying this, she chases him away. After this, Jang stands in one place and starts remembering his and Mi-sun's old memories. And he starts thinking, if Yun's mother is Mi-sun, then who is her father? So, the next day, when Jang meets Yun, he pretends to pull out a few strands of Yun's hair. And later, through a DNA test, he learns that Yun is actually his own daughter, who is being badly bullied at school. Thinking about these things, he became very angry. The next day, Jang sees the girls who used to bully Yun come again and start bullying her, saying, "You stole our lipstick, didn't you?" And after this, they start checking her bag. But then Jang tells them to save her. "I stole your lipsticks, but since I didn't like them, I threw them away." Saying this, he somehow saves Yun. But he sees that Yun was actually very upset and crying. Because of this, he gets extremely angry. He starts showing pictures of all those girls to Manchul. And he says, "All these girls are bullying my daughter. So, take some men and go teach them a lesson. And, if necessary, break a bone or two." However, after hearing this, Manchul is completely shocked. And he tells him, "Boss, we can't do that even if we want to. They are just high school kids, a few girls. How can we beat them up? Actually, I think Yun should handle all these matters at school herself." So, Jang quickly goes and meets Mi-sun and tries to explain everything to Mi-sun. However, since Mi-sun didn't know that her old boyfriend's soul had entered this chubby boy, she thought this chubby boy was Dong. And then she tells Jang that even the teachers completely ignore this bullying issue. That's why kids can't even complain to them. However, after hearing this, Mi-sun gets very worried. And she starts saying that actually all this fault lies with the man named Jang. He probably doesn't even know how much difficulty I and his daughter are going through. However, after hearing such bad things about himself, Jang gets a little too upset. And he comforts Mi-sun, saying, "Don't worry at all. I'll handle all the school matters." Meanwhile, we see Jang's wife has now teamed up with Young. So, she comes and tells the chairman, meaning her father, that Jang stole 3 billion won from the company. And as proof, she shows some documents. Meanwhile, we see Jang finally makes a decision. He will not let his daughter be bullied at school like this anymore. He will even get this boy's body into shape. So he starts exercising. And Yun's mother also sends her here. However, Yun comes and directly tells him that she can't practice fighting with him here. Saying this, she tries to leave. But then we see the man named Manchul arrives as their new teacher and finally stops Yun here. And after that, the two of them start practicing fighting. After a few days of doing this, we see that Yun has now become a very good fighter, and the chubby boy, Dong, has also lost weight and is now in perfect shape. After this, when he comes to school with his new look, all the girls start going crazy over him, and even the boys were going crazy after seeing him. But after this, at the end of school, he goes to Yun's house with her. And here, he sees many pictures of Yun's childhood. And when he finds a picture of Yun's childhood, he also takes a picture of it on his phone. Meanwhile, the carpenter works hard all month, and when he was returning home with his salary at the end of the month, suddenly some thugs catch him on the street. And they start beating him up. Actually, the carpenter had taken a loan of some money from these thugs 2 years ago. However, since he lost a shop, he couldn't repay those loans. That's why these thugs have now come to beat him and collect the money from him. But just then, Jang arrives, and after seeing his father's situation, he goes and starts beating the thugs. But his father hugs him and covers him, and starts taking all the blows himself. After the thugs beat them up, the thug's boss comes and tells the carpenter, "You only have 2 months. If you don't give me 80 million won within these 2 months, then later I'll come and take you and sell all your organs." Saying this, when they leave, Jang sees that his father, meaning this carpenter, has passed out. After this, Manchul comes alone to teach those thugs a lesson. And after beating them up badly all by himself, he tells them, "That carpenter took 5 million won from you 2 years ago, and now you're demanding 80 million won from him. Stop asking for money from that carpenter, or else you'll face trouble." And after hearing this, the man gets very scared and agrees to Manchul's words. After this, Jang makes food for his father and feeds him. And after eating these, his father was very happy because his son was taking so much care of him. And the carpenter tells him, "Actually, those thugs also called me. They told me they've reduced my debt quite a bit." The next day, when Jang was at school, he was feeling very happy looking at his daughter's picture. But just then, those girls who bully his daughter arrive. And when they try to bully Yun, this time Yun doesn't get scared and starts confronting them. And after beating them up badly, she threatens them not to try to bully her anymore. Saying this, when she leaves, Jang also gets very happy after seeing all this from a distance because he understood that his daughter was just like him. After this, Jang meets Mi-sun and tells Mi-sun everything. After learning these things, Mi-sun also becomes very happy. Then she gives him ramen to eat. And when Jang was eating ramen, Mi-sun tells him, "The way you're eating ramen, it reminds me of someone. Actually, lately, seeing you reminds me of Yun's father." Saying this, when she goes to handle other customers, those customers try to bully her. However, after seeing this, Jang gets very angry. And he comes and starts arguing with the customers. And when these customers lay hands on Mi-sun, Jang takes Mi-sun and locks her in the kitchen. And after that, he alone starts beating these people. He grabs one man and beats him up badly, saying, "How dare you lay a hand on my girlfriend?" And after that, he starts beating that man very badly. But then Mi-sun comes from behind and stops him. And she says, "If you hit him like that, he'll die. And besides, who are you? Why do you keep calling me your girlfriend?" So, Jang clarifies everything to her. And he says that his soul has actually entered this boy's body. However, Mi-sun didn't want to believe any of these things. So, she tells Jang, "You have a mole on the side of your stomach. If you want, I can tell you even more private things." And then Mi-sun asks him, "Then tell me, where did we first meet, and where did we break up?" And Jang also tells her everything clearly. But Jang tells her, "The day we broke up, why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Then I would never have left you." And after hearing these, Mi-sun clearly understands that this is Jang. But she tells him, "Why are you here now? What do you want from me? Besides, Yun is not your daughter. I raised Yun all by myself. So, you have no right over Yun. Besides, you're a gangster now. And we broke up because you were a gangster." So, Mi-sun tells Jang to leave. And Jang is forced to leave. And after Jang leaves, Mi-sun starts remembering the day they broke up. Actually, Mi-sun was about to meet Jang and tell him everything, but before that, Jang had broken up with her because his marriage to the chairman's daughter had been arranged. And by marrying the chairman's daughter, he would get a lot of money. That's why he left Mi-sun. However, thinking about these things now, Mi-sun gets very angry. The next day at school, when Jang was sitting next to Yun, a rich boy comes to Yun. And he starts inviting her to his birthday party. He says, "There's a party tonight. You can come if you want." Actually, after hearing this, Yun gets a little too excited because she liked this boy. And when Jang learns that his daughter actually likes this boy, he gets up from beside her and leaves. Meanwhile, as Mi-sun was only thinking about Jang, Jang messages her and asks her to meet him somewhere. Meanwhile, Yun goes to that rich boy's party. And here, we see Jang's school friend had fallen into the clutches of those bully girls. Actually, he was working as a waiter for them. And then he hears these girls saying that Yun is going to have a bad time today because poor Yun doesn't even know why she was invited to the party. And we see that Jang's school friend overhears all these conversations. Meanwhile, when Mi-sun comes to meet Jang, Jang explains to her, "Whatever I did to you is wrong. Now I want to be with you again and correct my mistakes." However, Mi-sun directly refuses him and says, "That's impossible. Besides, you're married now. So, what will our neighbors say?" But after hearing this, everyone there is shocked because they were thinking that such a young kid is already married. And he's also having an affair with a woman. However, when Mi-sun was trying to get up and leave, Jang grabs her and forcibly starts kissing her. But then Mi-sun somehow breaks free and slaps him hard. However, after seeing this, The people around them are even more shocked because they couldn't understand what was happening here. After this, Mi-sun tries to drag Jang to the police station. But Jang repeatedly starts apologizing to her. However, Mi-sun wasn't listening to anything he said. But just then, Jang's school friend calls him. And he tells him that Yun might be in some danger. And after hearing this, Jang takes his car, picks up those bully girls, threatens them, and finds the party's location. And after that, he goes to save his daughter. Meanwhile, that rich boy tells Yun to drink alcohol. However, when Yun refuses him, that rich boy reverts to his true self. He tells her, "Actually, I didn't invite you to such an expensive party for nothing. You definitely have to give me something." Saying this, he pours a lot of alcohol over her head. And then we see Jang arrive here. He first fights with the guards outside, beats them up, and comes inside. And he tries to find Yun. He sees some boys trying to harass Yun. So, he tries to take Yun and leave. However, when those boys try to stop him, he first beats up a chubby boy. Then he starts beating them all one by one. And within a few minutes, Jang beats everyone here to a pulp. Although one boy was a little good at fighting, after taking a few punches, he also falls to the ground. And then we see one of those bully girls falls for Jang after seeing all this fighting. And then, seizing the opportunity, Yun frees herself from that rich boy. And she kicks him hard in a sensitive spot and throws him straight into the pool. The next morning, when Manchul comes to the hospital to meet Jang's real body, some guards stop him outside. They say that it's the chairman's order that no one can meet Jang. So, Manchul comes to meet the real Jang and explains everything to him. He says that his wife, along with Young, has proven to the chairman that he stole 3 billion won. That's why the chairman thinks that when he was trying to escape after stealing them, that's when he had the accident. And after hearing these, Jang also clearly understands what he needs to do now. And right after this, we see Manchul follows Jang's orders and finally goes to the chairman and gives him a letter before leaving. After this, Jang comes to Mi-sun and asks what Yun's condition is now. But Mi-sun tells him, "If you truly love Yun, then leave quickly." So, Jang also starts to leave. But just then, that bully girl comes in front of him. And she comes and asks him, "Are you and Yun dating each other?" Then Jang gets a little too angry and says, "No." And because of this, the girl says, "Okay, then you be my boyfriend." But Jang also refuses her. But this girl puts a box in his hand and leaves. But just then, Yun arrives and asks him, "Are you going to date that girl?" Then Jang, in anger, says, "No." Then Yun tells him, "Then you be my boyfriend." But then Jang gets even more angry, refuses her, and quickly leaves. After this, Yun comes to her mother, Mi-sun, and says that she actually wants to make Dong her boyfriend. However, after hearing this, Mi-sun gets a little too worried because she knew very well that the boy named Dong is actually Yun's father, Jang. So, she tells her, try to stay away from him. The next day, Mi-sun grabs Jang from school and takes him aside. And she asks him, "What are you actually trying to do? Now your own daughter wants to make you her boyfriend." Then Jang tells her, "I was only trying to be her friend." But Mi-sun tells him, "You leave quickly and never come back into our lives. Because the two of us can never be together again because you're already married." But just then Yun arrives. And she asks, "Who's married here?" But then Jang, without thinking, says, "I'm married. I like your mother." However, after hearing this, Yun gets very angry. She felt that her mother had stolen her love from her. So, she gets angry and leaves. But after this, Mi-sun grabs Jang and starts beating him. She says, "Why did you say that?" After this, at night, Young comes to the hospital, beats up all the guards, and comes to Jang to kill him. But just then, Jang regains consciousness. And he tells Young, "Uncle, your zipper is open." However, when Young sees Jang awake, he himself passes out. After this, he comes to the carpenter's house and starts calling the carpenter Dad. And he starts crying to his father. And here, we learn that Dong's soul has actually entered Jang's body. That's why he was calling the carpenter Dad. However, since for the carpenter, This is an old man. He was very scared and trying to run away. But just then, Jang arrives, and when they can see each other clearly, they both clearly understand what has happened to them. Although after seeing these, Dong gets a little too scared. Jang slaps him hard to calm him down and starts explaining everything to both of them. We see Jang explains everything to the carpenter, but the carpenter didn't want to believe it. But a little later, after hearing their conversation, he clearly understands that Jang is telling the truth. And after this, Jang tells Dong, I know very well that you like Yun. If you help me, I will definitely set you up with Yun. Meanwhile, Jang's wife was screaming at Yun over the phone because she couldn't kill Jang. But then Young tells her, there's nothing to worry about. I've sent my men. They'll bring Jang very soon. And then we see a man comes to him and says, we've found out where Jang has gone. After this, both Jang and Dong come to Misun. And this time, Dong, pretending to be Jang, starts explaining everything to Misun. He says that their two souls have exchanged again. And after that, he starts apologizing to Misun in the way Jang told him to. But just then, Young arrives with his men. And when Dong sees these things, he starts crying. And after seeing these, Misun also clearly understands what's happening. So, Jang locks both of them in the kitchen and tells Dong to make sure Misun doesn't get out. After that, he alone starts beating all the thugs. Although Young thought this was just a high school boy, he was completely ignoring him. But within a few seconds, he beats everyone here and injures them. Because of this, Young also gets very worried. After this, when Young sends his most powerful fighter to fight, Jang, and he fight for a long time. But at one point, Jang beats him to a pulp. However, after this, Young suddenly attacks Jang from behind, severely injuring him and holding a knife to his throat. And then he threatens, Jang, come out quickly, or else I'll kill him. But then we see Misun arrive here with a gas cylinder. And she turns on the cylinder, takes a gas lighter in her hand and threatens them, saying, if you don't leave before I count to 3, I'll cause an explosion here and kill everyone. And after seeing these, when Young gets a little too scared, Jang takes this opportunity to attack him and starts beating him. But then Misun also tells him to stop. So, Young takes his men and runs away from there. After this, Jang somehow comes to Misun, turns off the cylinder, and takes the gas lighter from her hand. We see Misun was very broken. She was also very emotional. And then Dong also comes out. And then Misun puts the real Jang aside and starts talking to Jang's body. And she shares all the feelings she had kept inside her heart with him. She tells him, I've waited for you for 17 years. And after all these years, you've finally come. Saying this, she hugs him. And then the real Jang realizes that Misun still loves him. Meanwhile, the chairman brings his daughter and starts questioning her. Actually, through that letter, he had learned that Jang hadn't stolen any money. His daughter, along with Young, was trying to deceive him. And because of this, the chairman tells her that this letter was written before the accident, and they checked the handwriting and saw that it was indeed written before the accident. But then Jang's wife tells him, actually, how is that possible? Because I teamed up with Young only after the accident happened. And after hearing this, the chairman clearly understands that his daughter is trying to deceive him. Besides, he already knew about his daughter's affair, which is why he had also brought her boyfriend. Meanwhile, Jang explains the script well to Dong. And he tells him to say everything just like him. After this, he also sends him in front of the chairman. And then Dong finally comes in and sits in front of the chairman and starts saying everything according to the script. And when all these conversations were happening, the real Jang was listening to everything from the car through a radio. But then the chairman disinherits his daughter from all his property. And he refuses to give her a single penny. However, after hearing these, the chairman's daughter gets extremely angry. And she says that Jang also has a daughter. He also has an affair with someone else. However, after hearing this, when the real Jang was trying to give instructions to Dong, due to a network glitch, he couldn't hear anything. So, Dong tells the chairman the truth. He says, yes, I have a daughter, but I only found out about this after the accident. However, if you kick me out of the company for wanting to be with my family and refuse to give me a single penny, it doesn't matter to me. I will accept all your decisions wholeheartedly. However, after hearing this, the chairman also calms down. And when the chairman's daughter sees all these things, she gets angry and leaves. And after this, the chairman also tells Jang, from now on, the company is yours. The company will run according to your wishes. So, when Jang comes out very happy, the real Jang, very happy, hugs him because he had handled everything. But then we see the chairman's daughter, extremely angry, was planning to run them over with her car. But then Jang pushes Dong, and himself goes under the car, which severely injures him. And they quickly try to take him to the hospital. And then Mi-sun and Yun also arrive here. And when Yun sees the real Jang's body, she tells her mother, "This is my father, right? You hid my father's picture for me. But I saw that picture." But then we see the real Jang, who is now in Dong's body, says, "Yes, I am your father." However, after hearing this, Yun gets very confused. And she was thinking that maybe her mother had actually married her friend. However, while saying these things, the real Jang passes out, which causes Jang's body, meaning Dong, to also pass out there. So, both of them are quickly taken to the operating theater. And here, when Jang was being operated on, he sees the woman from that restaurant in front of him. And then he clearly understands that this woman was behind the soul switch. But now this woman tells him to sleep. After this, the story fast-forwards 6 months. We see that Dong has now returned to his real body. And now, when he comes to school, everyone starts praising him because, thanks to him, all the bullying boys at school had run away and left school. And now Dong and Yun had become heroes at school. And meanwhile, the thug named Young had also been caught by the police. And when Jang returns to his real body, he gives up his gangster life and starts living with Mi-sun. And we see that Manchul and the carpenter had also started working with them. And in this way, Jang, having left his gangster life, was leading a very beautiful life with his family. And at such an interesting point, this entire movie ends here.